Hey there, welcome back to QuickBooks Desktop 2022. This is Cindy. We are all the way down now to video number 10 in Module 4, and I want to show you in this video how to receive customer payments. Once you send an invoice to a customer and they pay you, how do you actually receive that payment in QuickBooks? Let's go ahead and flip over to QuickBooks and I'll show you how to receive those customer payments. When you receive a payment from a customer, you want to go ahead and enter it through this Receive Payment window. Notice if you're following the flowchart, it's the next thing after Create Invoices. It doesn't matter how the customer paid you, it doesn't matter how much they paid you, you're going to enter all of that information in this window. If there's a balance due, QuickBooks will remember that. The first thing you want to do is put in who the payment was received from. If you're using the job feature, always click the job. I'm going to say this is for Tom Allen's sunroom. As soon as you choose the customer and job, you'll notice that any invoices that are still open for that customer and job will appear at the bottom here. And it will also let you know the amount that's due, just in case something had already been applied to this. You'll also notice in the top right, this is the customer balance. The next thing you want to do is put in the amount that the customer paid you. I'm going to say in this case is $3,193, and I'll leave off the 6 cents just to show you what happens when there's an over or underpayment. If you notice down at the bottom, this appeared now because it says I have an underpayment of 6 cents and it's asking me what would I like to do with that. I can just leave it on their account, which is what I'm going to do in this case. Hopefully they'll pay me next time. Or if you know you want to write it off, you can go ahead and do that with this option right here. The other thing to notice is that QuickBooks automatically assumed that all of the first invoice would be paid in full and the balance would go to the second invoice. You want to make sure you apply payments correctly, because if not, 6 months down the road, you're going to end up with a situation where your books don't match your customer's books. If you need to uncheck one of these, or if you need to check one, you can do that. And you can also type over here how much the customer has specified that you apply to each invoice. Always choose the correct date of the payment. And you also have a field for the reference number. Over here, you'll notice this is a way to tell QuickBooks how the customer paid you. Did they give you cash? Did they write a check? You can see that based on which option you choose, this may change. When I was clicked on cash, this said reference number, and that would just be any reference number I'd like to pop in there. But notice when I click on check, it gives me a place to put in the customer's check number. If you click on Visa, you're going to see that it pops up and asks you to enter the card information. If you're not using the Intuit Merchant Services, then you don't really need to fill this in because you're not running their card through in QuickBooks. It would just be a matter of you keeping that information for your records. I'm going to cancel that. There are some other options here. Notice there's a down arrow that has a few payment methods listed. It could be the customer bartered this with you. But if you need to add a new payment method, just click on New Payment Method here and then put in the method they paid you with. I'll add Zelle to the list and I'll just say that the payment type is cash, but notice my other choices here. I'll just click OK. And now that will be on my list for any customers that pay me with Zelle. Now let's take a look at some of your options up here under your tabs. You can see that we're under the Main tab, and a lot of these options you're already familiar with. You know how to find a customer payment if you're looking for one. Here's a way to create a new customer payment. That's the same thing as that Save and New in the bottom right. Here's a way to delete the payment. You can also come over here and print the payment. I'll just show you what that looks like. If you're going to print the payment, it does ask you what you'd like your payment receipt template to look like. You have the ability to customize this. If you wanted to do that, you would click on Customize Template down here. But right now, this is what it's going to look like. I'm going to go ahead and say Not Now and preview this so that you can see here's what the payment receipt actually looks like. You can see it's a little different than an invoice or an estimate. It has a place for the date of that payment and also the payment method, and you can see where this was a check number and they have that check number in there. Over on the right is the total amount of the payment and the invoices listed that it paid below. I'm going to go ahead and close. The next thing I'll point out is the email option. If you want to email that payment receipt, you can do that and email it to your customer. Here's where you can attach a file. You can also look up a customer and an invoice. If you click on that, this will allow you to search. Right here it says invoice number, and I could search for any customer that has a particular invoice number, but I could also search by one of these options as well. If I wanted to unapply a payment, that basically is going to uncheck all of this. See how these are unchecked now? I'll just go back and check them. And then if there were any discounts or credits that you're going to give your customer related to this, you could go ahead and enter that now. You would enter the amount of the discount you're going to give, the discount account, and then a class if you happen to be using that. This process payments just allows you to process a credit card payment if you're using the Intuit Merchant Services. Here's where you could sign up for that if you wanted to check out the options. You do have a formatting tab in the back. You'll notice a couple of things here. For the payment receipt we saw a few moments ago, you can go through and actually use the standard one here or customize it. There's also a tab for reports. If you wanted to look at open invoices for this customer or some of these other reports that you see right here, you could do that. And the last tab over says payments. If you wanted to check out again the credit card processing from Intuit, you could do that. Most of the time you'll stay under the main tab. Before we save this, let's go ahead and go to the bottom right, and you'll notice that it tells you the amount due, how much was applied, and if there were any discounts and payments applied here. All you have to do when you're finished is go ahead and save and close. And if you've made any changes to your transaction, you can go ahead and say yes if it asks you if you want to record your changes. And that's how you're going to receive payments for customers. Now, before we leave, let me go ahead and go back to the Customer Center. I'm going to click on Customers. And if you notice, I'm on Tom Allen's sunroom over here. And you can see there's the estimate we created, the 2 invoices we created, and then there's the payment right there. If you need to make a change to that payment or open it up to look at it for any reason, just double click on it, and then you can look and see what's going on with this payment. There is one quick thing that I wanted to mention. There's a question here that says, where does this payment go? Let me just show you real quick where the payment's going to end up. I'm going to go back to the chart of accounts. I just clicked on Home over on the left here, and I'm going to the chart of accounts. You're going to see an account called Undeposited Funds. You'll see it right here. That money that we just received for that payment is in this total right here. Let me open this up so you can see it. Here it is right down here at the bottom. Something to know about undeposited funds. These are monies that you've received, but you have not yet taken to the bank as far as QuickBooks is concerned. It's not a deposit in your checking account. One of the ways to keep a check on yourself is this should always say 0 if you've already deposited all of the money. Now, how does that get to 0? Well, we're going to talk about that when we talk about recording deposits. I'm going to have you go ahead and head over to video number 11. We'll talk about payment links, and then when we get to video 12, we'll be going through the deposits right here so that you can see how that money gets out of undeposited funds and into the actual checking account.